The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. The apostles returned from their mission. They gathered around Jesus and told him all they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in a boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now, many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As Jesus went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Friends, one name stood out above all others in the civil rights movement in the 50s and the 60s. That name was Martin Luther King. And this past January, when the United States was celebrating his birthday, they have big celebrations in the U.S. for him, I read a story that was on the internet that I found very, very interesting. And when the readings for this Sunday, especially the Gospel, came up, I went back to that story because I want to share it with you, because I think it has a powerful message for us this weekend. As you know, King was an undisputed leader of millions of Black Americans. He was their hero. He was their spokesman. And many even called him their shepherd. Without him, Black people in those days would have been like people in our gospel today. They would have been like sheep without a shepherd. The article that I read went on to say that King and his close associates were like Jesus and his disciples in another way. They too found it impossible to be off alone by themselves for peace and quiet. The example that they gave was when King was in Montgomery, Alabama, and he had this hectic day. And so he and his wife went back to where they were staying, and Corita, his wife, fell asleep right away. And as King was dozing off, the telephone rang. And he picked it up quickly so it wouldn't wake up his wife. An angry voice on the other end said, "Listen." Then he heard the N-word, where we've taken all we want from you. Before next week, you'll be sorry you ever came to Montgomery. Then the caller hung up. Suddenly, King's fears came tumbling down, as he said, like a building, collapsed building. His courage left him. He got up and went into the kitchen and put some coffee on, and he sat there and tried to think of a way that he could remove himself from the situation in Montgomery without appearing to be a coward. At that moment, with his courage gone, He bowed his head and prayed to God. And they quoted him in this article of what he said. Lord, I'm taking a stand for what I think is right. But now I'm afraid, terribly afraid. People are looking to me to lead them. But if I appear to be frightened, they too will become afraid. I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know what to do. I can no longer face this responsibility alone. The most striking lines for me in that prayer are the ones where he said, people are looking to me to lead them. But if I appear to be frightened, they too will become afraid. In other words, to borrow the expression in today's gospel, they will be like sheep without a shepherd. See, every pastor of a parish, every teacher of a class, every parent of a family can identify with Dr. King's words. There are times in life when we feel the responsibility of leadership in a frightening way. You just say, I can't do this anymore. There are times in life when we feel we can no longer carry the burden that we are being asked to carry, that's been placed upon us. There are times in our life when we feel like Jesus, who cried out in the Garden of Gethsemane, Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me. When times of crisis like this come up, what should we do? See, friends, it's important that we do what Jesus did, what Martin Luther King did, what saints and Christians have done throughout the centuries. We need to turn to God in prayer. I was reminded that right after Jesus prayed to the Father in the Garden of Gethsemane, St. Luke says, an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. It's in prayer that we get that strength. But oftentimes, we don't turn there. And right after Dr. King prayed to God on this night in Montgomery, he said he felt this strength, the strengthening presence of God that he had never, ever felt before. There's a practical message here for each of us. It's simply this. When heavy burdens threaten to crush us, we too turn to God in prayer. And if we do, God will strengthen us. I want to close this afternoon by paraphrasing the psalm we prayed today. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He guides me in right paths for his name's sake. Though I walk in the valley of darkness, I will not fear, for the Lord walks beside me. He steadies me and strengthens me. And when my life fades like the fading sunset, he will escort me into his home to live with him forever and ever.